This is the last session on MRP, MRP2 and DRP. Now during this session, lecture sessions, I will be referring to mainly the MRP2 systems, and it's the latest of the systems in use, and so we have referred to evolution of MRP systems. In the last lecture sessions, I have referred to the closed loop MRP systems, and what is required, that why don't you extend this closed loop MRP system to the manufacturing resource, the planning, in the sense that not only say the materials or so the inventories of say the materials or what you can say the items or the components you require. There may be other kinds of resources you need to use, and why don't you link your MRP systems or closed loop MRP systems to other kinds of resources, so that you take a total view of your manufacturing systems, and so when you extend materials, the requirements planning to manufacturing resource planning, that means that is also MRP, but that is the next version, that's why it is referred to as the MRP2. So we'll discuss in detail the MRP2 and why it is required, what are the critical, also what are the main characteristics of MRP2, and we'll also highlight some of the limitations or of say the MRP systems, original limitations. You should be aware of the limitations the systems, because no system is a 100% foolproof system, so there is always a need for improving. That's why the evolution of MRP systems you also must know. So the limitations of MRP systems, and then we'll refer to the distribution requirement planning, so or the DRP. Many organizations these days they try to include the distribution network of their products into the MRP framework. So how do you do it? Why do you do it? Why the DRP has assumed importance? So all these details we are going to discuss in this lecture session. Now again, the referring to evolution of MRP systems, what we find that these days mainly we are using the MRP2 systems. Many progressive organizations, particularly in the manufacturing category and manufacturing industries, they have adopted, they have been using the ERP systems, and the ERP system is essentially or the basic logic of ERP system the rests on the MRP2. So whenever someone becoming conversant with MRP system, he or she must be conversant with MRP2 systems. So the MRP2 being an integrated total system, whereas MRP is not necessarily an integrated total system. It is essentially linking inventory control system with the production control, but there are many other subsystems you come across, you have to consider while building the total system for an organization. So the MRP2 uses information from all the major functions of a manufacturing organization into a single platform for the total operation plan with a set of modules. Now here, when you say that all the major functions, so you must be aware of what are the major functions you may have. So I'll just mention what are the important the functions as per say ISO 9001 standards or the equivalent American standards Q90 or 91 standards, 90 to 94 standards. So these functions are, some of the important functions are marketing and market research, then the specifications engineering or the product the development. The third one is the procurement. Okay. The fourth one is the process planning and control. The fifth one is the production. Okay. So these are the functions need to refer to. The next one is, you know, that inspection, the test and examination, that is the final inspection, test and examination. Everywhere you will find when the product is ready, so you go for its final inspection. Then the next one is you know, the packing and storing, the packaging and storing. So this is also a very important functions. The next one is actually the sales and distributions. And then you can have suppose it's an industrial product, what you try to do, that you need to install it, install the product. Suppose the transformer is your product and the transformer is to be installed at the customer's the work site, okay, the customer's production system. So installation and operation is a very important function, particularly for the industrial products. And the next one is essentially the maintenance and the services. That means you must be, you know, aware of what kind of problems it might face within the warranty period and all. And the last one, that is the disposal after use. That means the product is born and the product also dies. So the disposal is a very important activity. So these are the main functions you have. Now the question is that why don't you have a total system, okay, involving all these the important functions, and you try to and everywhere there are resources. So why don't you can have say the manufacturing resource or say manufacturing resource planning or the MRP systems, considering all the important functions of an organization. So this is a very challenging task. So, but in many cases what you try to do, that means you try to include in MRP2 systems some of the functions like manufacturing, obvious, then the marketing, then the engineering functions, what we have mentioned as the specifications engineering or the product development, and you also include the finance with what if simulation and sensitivity analysis. So what if simulation is an important module in many such MRP systems. Okay. So manufacturing will be there, marketing will be there, engineering will be there, and the finance is an important the module, and with a common module of say what if simulation. MRP2 results in a single integrated plan to meet overall goals of an organization. So you are proposing a total systems of control. It links strategic planning, that means at the corporate level, to shop floor control and accounting through marketing planning, production planning and purchasing. So you just look at this figure. So I've tried to explain all the important you know, the functions or important modules in MRP2 systems. So what do you have? That means you have the strategic planning, that is one, objectives or the goals of strategic planning, objectives you must know. Then you have the marketing planning, that means the demands of the products. Then you have the production planning. Now whenever you refer to the production planning, you come across or you need to use several kinds of resources. You have to mobilize the resources for which the planning is a must. Now the first question you raise, that is, are resources available? So availability is a very very important factors, the key consideration. So if it is no, that means again you go back to the production planning. Is it okay? One important function called process planning and control. So they look into these aspects. Next, if the resources are adequately available, then you go for master production scheduling. Is it okay? That means now you are able to make the schedule product wise. Is it okay? The schedule, and for that you need the documents called the bill of materials, inventory status records, and then you have the material requirements planning. Already you know that these are the three documents you require: MPS, bill of materials or the product structure records, and this is the inventory status records. So you have the material requirements planning, that is the first version. Then you link it with the capacity requirements planning. I have already mentioned when I discussed that in the closed loop MRP. So the open loop MRP has become a closed loop MRP, and here these particular records you refer to, that is routing and operations records. Now this routing, actually it's an important concept, and obviously there will be a process planning cell. That means you have the design details in the form of say the drawings and the bill of materials, but you also must have the process plan. And whenever you create a process plan, there is a structured approach, in fact. So the given a particular part or given a particular component or sub assemblies, now you will come to know what are the sequence of operations to be carried out with the resources, like the machine tools or the cutting tools, then the work holding devices. The details are there in the process planning documents. And so when you look at the sequence of activities to be carried out, sequence of operations to be carried out, you have the informations on the routing. So is capacity available? If it is no, then again you go back to the capacity requirements planning phase, and you try to create these capacities. And if the capacity is available, you go for purchasing, you go to the shop floor control. So ultimately the shop floor control is very, very important, in fact, and accounts departments is also getting involved. That means the finance part also you should take into account. So this relates to the objectives. This is the demands. Production planning is related to the resources. Master production scheduling is related to the products. Material requirements planning is related to the components, particularly the dependent demand items or the components. Capacity requirements planning in terms of the time units, that is the hours availability. Purchasing deliveries, okay, and so shop floor control, that means the priorities. That means what sort of the scheduling techniques you must have, what is the sequencing and all those, loading and sequencing, and the accounting, that means ultimately the results. Okay, so this is essentially in MRP2 systems. Now, so the MRP2 systems you study, and you will notice that it is a total system, not only one kinds of resources. Almost all kinds of resources are their levels are to be controlled online and on the real time basis, and so that the decisions you take will have a direct impact, and you have an opportunity to correct your decisions all the time. So, but when you create an MRP system, but there are certain assumptions you make, and because of due to these assumptions, there may be some inherent the limitations in the MRP approach. So I would now like to highlight the specific limitations of the MRP systems. Okay, whether it is MRP2 or say the closed loop MRP, whatever it is. Now here the first limitation is the lead time is assumed constant. This point already I have mentioned, and independent of the lot size. This may not be the case in many a time. So we are assuming lead time is assumed constant. The second one is, second assumptions we are making, second limitation is it assumes fixed routing for items, fixed process plan. But as you know that many a time the flexibility is inbuilt in the process planning systems. That means suppose a particular the operation you is not be getting at a particular say the point in time because of many reasons. So and that machine or that particular machine tool is not made available. It may be under breakdown conditions. So the flexibility is an say must be the inbuilt in the process planning. So what you try to do again, you think of the alternate process plans. Okay, so this version the option is there. This flexibility has to be there in the process planning systems. So but here for the MRP systems we assume that the routes cannot change, so it's a fixed say the process plan. But you can make it flexible, and there are many versions of MRP where this part has, that means the flexibility has become an important say the characteristic of the MRP system. Priority of an order is determined only by due date or the period. So when you refer to the job shop scheduling, there may be many kinds of priority rules, like say the earliest due dates, like say the shortage processing time, or some so there are many others in fact. So the priority rules. So here only one priority rule you opt for, that is the due date or the period. Is it okay? Other priority rules are not considered. Is it okay? And capacity constraint is not usually considered. Is it okay in a MRP system? Whereas in MRP2 system, this capacity constraint is considered, or even in closed loop MRP system, closed loop MRP systems. So but the MRP system, original MRP system is linked with the capacity planning system. So obviously the capacity constraint is considered in MRP2 systems, but not in the original MRP systems. However, development and use of online real-time control system in view of the difficulties in designing mathematical model-based inventory and production control system for dependent items is considered the main merit of an MRP system. So this point you please make a note. That means for the dependent the demand items in large numbers, normally they exist in large numbers. So the mathematical model based inventory and production control system cannot be developed. Okay, so that's why you go for say MRP systems. Companies throughout the world have been successfully implementing MRP and MRP2 systems at their manufacturing plants since early or the mid 70s. Now before I close the session, I will just I will be discussing certain important aspects of the DRP or distribution requirement planning. Now what is a distribution requirement planning system? Now a distribution requirements planning system is an extension of MRP system to distribution inventories. Is it okay? Like say what you have actually, you have the factory systems or the manufacturing systems, and from the manufacturing systems you have the outbound logistic systems, and through these outbound logistic systems your product goes to the user. Is it okay? So in between you can have say the storing, the finished goods storings. So in between you can have say the wholesalers. It goes to the wholesalers, and then it goes to the retailers, and then the items are the procured or items are purchased from the retailers. Suppose it's the consumer items. So for the industrial products, there could be different types of say the outbound logistic system. So basically it is a distribution network, and obviously so there could be different control points in the distribution network, and you have to make a plan so that in advance, so that whenever at say the user or say the customer the needs an item in the required quantities, the quantities are this item with the required quantities are made available. Okay, so without say the waiting time. So in order to say the maintain say the timely the delivery of items to the users, so you need to so they consider so the resource planning systems within the distribution network. So essentially in a DRP system, the focus is on the flow of materials or the flow of finished products within the distribution channels, and within say the distribution network, and this the flow of the finished product should be as smooth as possible. Okay, so that means the timing will be maintained, and the required quantities are to be made available. So this is a say an important aspect, and that's why that today when you talk about the total systems, the manufacturing system is when you try to explain the manufacturing system. So the manufacturing system we explain in terms of say the constraints imposed by say the distribution systems, or to what extent the manufacturing system is characterized by the characteristics of say the distribution network or the distribution systems. So the DRP is well suited to an integrated manufacturing distribution system. Okay, so in a majority of the cases we talk about these days the integrated manufacturing distribution systems, or in a pure distribution systems. So either the DRP systems you use or you implement for the integrated manufacturing distribution systems, or for certain products, okay, you need to consider the distribution system separately. So why don't you have a DRP system exclusively for the distribution networks? Companies that produce and distribute products, manufacturing and distributions are integrated, for which a comprehensive plan is to be made. So this is the main objective. By time phasing inventory requirements at each level in the distribution network, like you do for the manufacturing system. So same approach you follow, and but this approach is to be implemented for the distribution network. So the DRP can identify potential problems before they are encountered. DRP using MRP logic plans end item requirements through distribution network, company stores to wholesalers to retailers to end users. These are the four principal say the control points you have. The first one, the end items are in company stores, then it goes to the wholesalers, from wholesalers to retailers, and the retailers to the end users. Is it okay? So the bill of distribution is one of the basic inputs here, like say for the MRP, so the bill of material is the basic input, but here for the DRP, the bill of distribution is one of the basic inputs. So same the logic you follow, you have the inputs, you have the outputs for the DRP. Like MRP, DRP distinguishes between independent and dependent demand. Is it okay? Same logic. Planning horizon of DRP depends on the longest cumulative lead times. It may be 6 months to 1 year. Now here this is an important issue to be considered. In MRP or MRP2, what you find that that it is a short term planning. So week wise or maximum, say the fortnightly you make a plan, but so every week you control. Okay, whereas here the distribution network, that means there is the transport facilities and all, and normally the planning horizon is 6 months to 1 year. That means with a longer time frame you develop the DRP systems. Okay. With DRP, all distribution functions like inventory, transportation, warehousing actually the indicative of storing, etc., can be planned and controlled. Okay, so like these days we talk about the supply chain management. So one of the important issue of the supply chain management is distribution requirement planning. Later on we'll discuss the supply chain management issues. So you can link it. That means from the factory we move to say the distribution, the network, and ultimately these two the systems is the part of say the bigger the supply chain network. Okay, so the both inbound logistics as well as the outbound logistics you need to consider. It ensures better coordination between manufacturing and distribution function. That is obvious. Only a generic framework for DRP can be presented. Specific benefits can be realized if this framework is tailored to a particular distribution system in use. Now this is an important point, like say the DRP the system or say basic the distribution network varies from say the one company to another, from say the for one product mix to another product mix, and each the distribution network is a unique one. So what is the desired or what is expected is that a general framework of DRP you can propose, that can be made. I will show you that what is the general the framework, but ultimately what you need to do, that means a particular case you have to take. That means one case example you take up as an assignment, and you develop the DRP or the distribution or the requirements planning systems for that particular say the network. So this framework is tailored, must be tailored to a particular distribution system in use. The combined MRP DRP system is schematically presented in figure. So here what you have the master production schedule. So you have a production plan. So the production efficiency an important consideration. This is the distribution requirements after you get the product. So you have this is the DRP systems. Is it okay? This is the local, regional, and this is at the master's levels. Okay, distribution channel. Is it okay? So the main distribution channel, it consists of regional distribution channel, the local distribution channel. This is the local distribution channel, like is LDC, and similarly for the master production schedules, that is the end items, assembly, sub-assembly components. This part is, so this is basically this is bill of material, and this is basically the bill of the distribution. This is the bill of distribution. So this is the MRP systems and this is the DRP systems. So what you need to do, that means the distribution requirement plannings must be say explained or must be presented or must be implemented along with the MRP system. So that's why it is referred to as a combined MRP DRP system. Okay, so what the companies they have observed that if you say if you opt for a combined systems DRP MRP systems, so your performance will be excellent and there will be lot of advantages in the context of inventory management. Particularly what you will find that that the order size or say the overstock amount or the understock amount at a particular the point in time, you will have enough control on these three aspects. And particularly one important aspect is one important problem the inventory management system finds very critical, that is dealing with non-moving items or dealing with excess inventories. So what they have observed, if you have an MRP the DRP combined system, so at any point in time you will have the minimum amount of say non-moving items and excess inventory. So it will have a significant impact on the company's financial performance. So thank you.